This episode is brought to you by the Pilbara Health Professionals Network, made possible by funding from BHP's Vital Resources Fund. Welcome back to episode 2 of this podcast series designed to support healthcare professionals living and working in the Pilbara region. My name is Casey Beros, and admittedly, I'm usually a city slicker, but I've spent the last few months chatting to people who live in Karratha, and I can feel how much they love the place. So I can totally see why anyone would want to live there. With me today to explore the ins and outs of life in the regions is Sheree Davies. She's a community midwife in Karratha, a mum of 2, and was named Rising Star at the 2022 Rural Health Awards, as well as being the 2023 Excellence in Aboriginal Health Award winner. So she's kind of a big deal. Welcome, Sheree.
Thanks, Casey. I kind of probably don't feel like such a big deal because I pretty much do what every other health practitioner does out there. But yeah, thank you.
I want to hear a little bit about where you've come from. You grew up in Bunbury. You've been in Karratha for the last 18 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, I know it is quite a long time, but it's a great place to live.
What brought you to Karratha?
Probably the money. Me and my partner, now husband, were travelling overseas and had nothing. So we came to Karratha in the boom to cash up, I suppose.
What do you reckon has kept you there all these years?
Probably the community and the people. The people are just amazing. I mean, you make this kind of Pilbara family. I have some amazing friends. So I suppose mainly the community, really. And it's a great place to live. There's boating, there's fishing, there's things to do as well. So, yeah.
One of the things that I hear about living and particularly working regionally when you're in healthcare is that there are so many opportunities for career advancement. Because my understanding of your story is that you've only been a nurse and a midwife for a relatively short period of time, really, in the context of your life, and you've already achieved so much. Do you attribute any of that to the fact that you've worked regionally and further worked in the Pilbara specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel regional and remote health provides so many opportunities and career development. I suppose really the diversity, so the variety of skills that you capture. And then obviously having the support from the team that I work with is very important. But I've always felt safe and always been given the opportunities to continue developing in my career. So super lucky, really.
Can you give me an example for somebody who's listening to this? I've just finished my nursing qualifications and I am in, a public hospital in the city. How is that different to what I might experience? Like, what might I get to do if I was in the Pilbara, for example, that's different? How would my skills benefit?
In regional remote health, you get a lot more opportunity for the vast range of complexity of care, but more so, for example, cannulation. We dove straight in there and we're cannulating people quite quickly in our career, whereas we see that these people coming up from Perth aren't skilled in that. Well, they don't potentially have the opportunity because the doctors do it or whatever. But yeah, I suppose we're scaffolded up there to practice independently, which is quite an amazing opportunity.
There's quite a unique patient load in the Pilbara, and some of the stories that you've told me have been quite harrowing at times, but also these really beautiful experiences in feeling like you've gotten to make a difference. That's what any of us can hope for, right? That we get to go to work, do a job that we love with people that we like and really make a difference. Can you tell me about some of the women that you work with?
So I look after primarily Aboriginal and vulnerable women, however, also outreaching to all of the postnatal women after birth. There definitely is some sad stories, but these women are so empowering. They're so resilient and their stories just absolutely break you, but make you, if that makes sense, because you feel like you've made an impact on their story and their journey to better outcomes, I suppose, and having the opportunity to follow these women throughout their pregnancy, then into their postnatal period is really rewarding.
It's such a special time in any mother's life. Like, any mother will attest to that. You've got 2 little kids. You know what that's like to bring little kids into the world. Somebody named their baby after you?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me that story.
Yes. This was a particular woman who really touched me and had quite a sad story, a lot of FDV and child protection involvement. but we made a special bond, and she obviously felt very supported by the care that I provided, and she named her baby Sheree. So that was a bit special.
That's so beautiful. And living in a town, I understand that Karratha is a big town. There's lots of people that live there, but I imagine that you would, see your clients and see your patients and see their kids around.
Yeah. Well, actually, my kids hate it because I'll be walking down the shops and I'll be stopped about 10,000 times by all the mums and bubs. But then again, they see what mum does. They go, oh, did you deliver that baby? And I'm like, I did, So I suppose that's another proud mummy moment, showing my kids what I have achieved in my career.
The work sounds so inspiring, but also quite challenging. How do you take care of yourself?
As a mother of two, you don't really get much time, but I do involve myself in community things such as basketball. So that's one of my passions. I played as a child, and then I've run a basketball club. So getting involved in has taken, I suppose, some burden of all of the stresses from work. So I get to come home and obviously deal with the kids first, and then obviously catch up with some friends if I need to. The other thing, I suppose, is obviously getting on the boat is one of my favourite things to do.
We have to talk about the Pilbara family because everyone I've spoken to for this podcast series has mentioned them. This seems like the non-negotiable in terms of scaffolding you and supporting you and all of you up there in terms of your mental health. Tell me about them. Who are they? What do they mean to you? Why are these people so special?
I might get emotional with this because they do mean so much to me. We actually call them the Pilbara's finest. These are a bunch of my girlfriends that really support me in everything. I don't have family in Karratha. Majority of mine are down south. I know that they're only a phone call away, but it's not the same as someone coming around and giving you a big hug. And that's what my Pilbara family does for me, is they come and support me whenever I need it. They'll come and have a wine if I need it. They'll support me by just being there, I suppose. And they look after me. Really good for my soul.
It's so interesting talking to you in person because we've spoken previously, and everything that I've read and learned about you, you come across as being so strong. And I can see some real emotion in you when you talk about these people. What is that about?
I suppose that they are literally my family. These people are there day in, day out, through the good times and the bad times. So they do mean so much to me.
As an Indigenous woman, how important do you think it is to have Indigenous representation working in healthcare in places where there are a large Indigenous community?
Oh, it's so important. The connection that you can make with another Aboriginal person and the difference that you can make, I feel, is phenomenal. It doesn't mean that you can't if you aren't Aboriginal, but it definitely helps. And I've seen that with some of my Aboriginal liaison officers and colleagues, and the way that they have a yarn and the way that they communicate with each other, and then they build that amazing trust, and then they have trust in the healthcare system, right? So the more Aboriginal workers we can get within WA Health is vital, really.
What would you say to someone listening to this who's considering coming up and being part of the Pilbara community, or sitting on the fence like you were thinking, I might go back and study nursing or, change careers? What would you say to them?
I'd say do it. I say don't wait. I started studying at a later age as well and made that decision late in life. And I probably wish I had made it earlier because it's the best decision that I've ever made.
When we were talking through, I was having a little play around, reading your intro, reading out these, incredibly powerful and exciting awards that you've won over a really short period of time. You decided to go back to uni, you got your nursing degree, specialised in midwifery, and you've achieved a lot in a short period of time. And I could sense a discomfort in you about those accolades because my sense from you is that you really feel like this is such a team sport. I want to know about your relationships with the people that you work with and how important it is to be working with people that you can rely on, that can rely on you. You've got each other's backs clinically and professionally. How important is that in a regional setting?
So important. And it's funny you say that because, it didn't sit right with me, to be honest, because whilst I was very grateful that I received those awards, it was more about our team. And those awards that I took back to the hospital were to say thank you to everyone that supported me, because it is a team effort. It's like I can't just deliver a baby by myself. I need a lot of help and colleagues and doctors and nurses, and it's about working within that multidisciplinary team.
What are you excited about for the future?
I suppose to continue just supporting Aboriginal and vulnerable women, and about where Karratha Health Campus will go as well in the future, and the opportunities that may arise going forward.
Regional psychiatrist Kelly Ridley joins me now to reflect on my chat with Sheree. Kelly, thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Sheree is doing incredible work in the community. She's clearly a strong and vibrant and really passionate advocate for her community and for her work. As I was chatting to her, I got a sense of a real delicacy around her, particularly around managing some of that, I suppose, vicarious trauma of managing patients and human beings that are going through really challenging things. What do you do as a healthcare professional when you feel like you're taking trauma home?
Well, I think the first thing is really acknowledging vicarious trauma, that empathic people like Sheree, working in caring professions, whatever they may be, whether they're health or education or emergency services, put people in a position of potential vulnerability to vicarious trauma. And that happens through hearing about other people's traumatic experiences and then taking them on yourself. And signs that it might be happening to you are feeling more emotional about a patient's experience, or that emotional experience for you lingering a bit longer, particularly if you are taking it home or you find yourself investing more time or effort or thought outside of work in a patient than you normally would, or find yourself becoming pessimistic or cynical outside of your workspace. So if you do notice those kind of experiences are happening, in particular if they're spilling over into your family life, that really needs to be something that's talked about and dealt with in the workplace. And supervisors, managers and leaders in health systems have a real responsibility to talk about vicarious trauma and make it part of routine check-ins in the workspace, because we're all vulnerable to experiencing trauma at work. It's actually quite not easy, but more straightforward when there's a traumatic event work, something happens, we have debrief sessions, check in with our colleagues. The day-to-day experiences of working with people who've experienced trauma and giving of ourselves to those people and experiencing emotions in return, that kind of thing that really needs to be spoken about, and not just in a single conversation, but an ongoing one. And so you can deal with that in things like formal supervision with a peer and a colleague. That might be in your place of work, or it could be somewhere else, particularly in another place in country WA for that outside perspective. It might be talking about acknowledging your own feelings with a peer in your workplace, or writing it down, or it might be worth accessing formal therapy for that. And I'm a big supporter of health professionals having regular therapy to talk through their emotional responses and their behavioural responses to things that we're all exposed to in the workplace. Because I think sometimes there's the expectation that as health workers, we're exposed to traumatic or gory things, and so we can take that on no worries. And then sometimes our community and our friends and our family then come to us thinking, oh, you're immune to that stuff. I can tell you about that. I can share my trauma with you and you can take it on because you're so resilient. It can get too much at times, particularly if it's happening inside and outside of work. So it's also okay to say to people either in your workplace or at home, I actually can't hear about this right now. I'm prioritizing looking after my own health.
It's such a good point. It sounds like, we all need time and space to decompress, and healthcare workers often are working incredibly long hours, and in the early stages of your career in particular, work really can become your life, and it's hard to delineate between home and work, particularly when you're in a regional setting where those boundaries, as we've talked about, can get blurred. It does seem as though everyone I speak to in this space, they do seem to become a little desensitized to the trauma. And I suspect that that's partially a protective mechanism and maybe even a healthy one at that. But is there also a sense that because you have been in it a long time and you have become a little bit desensitized to it, while it might not be really consciously affecting you, that you're still in fact taking that trauma on?
Yeah, absolutely. Desensitized is an interesting word because I don't think we ever truly become desensitized, or if we do, that's a worry in and of itself. But I think we develop more coping mechanisms and kind of unconscious ways of dealing with things that we've learned over time, consciously or unconsciously. But we're certainly not immune to it. And even if you've been in the job for 40 years, those kind of experiences still have an effect on you. And so even if we're working with really experienced colleagues, we can learn from their experience. We also still need to take care of them.
Let's just switch gears here. I've heard from a lot of people who go regional that one of the biggest benefits is that it gives you a real chance to build your skills quite quickly in a way that may or may not be as available to someone in the city. We heard Sheree give the example of, that very quickly she was cannulating patients and that perhaps other healthcare workers or other nurses that come up to Karratha from the city aren't as skilled in that because there's typically someone else around to be able to do that. So that in essence, she and other nurses and healthcare professionals who are working in the regional setting actually end up with a broader and more diverse range of skills, perhaps more quickly, in a way that is almost a bit sort of sink or swim. What are your thoughts on that? Has that been your experience? Has that been the experience of your peers? Is going regional a chance to build skills more quickly?
100%. You really get a chance to do things right off the bat. A lot of that has to do with kind of competition for experience and numbers. And that happens right from student days. I did a student year in Kalgoorlie and you got a lot of hands-on experience faster because you weren't competing with the registrars and junior doctors and students for those opportunities to practice your clinical skills. But I think also in the country, there's a really big commitment to the apprentice model and see one, do one, teach one, wanting to upskill people quickly. And I also think there's a lovely culture of being able to learn from other health professionals in your workplace. And so, for example, in my workplace now, our social worker has taught lots of us different aspects of his job. So when he's on leave, we're able to provide a little bit of cross cover. So when he's on leave, we're not bereft so completely of the services he provides. And then for me personally, I've been able to step into a clinical director role way faster than I thought I would because I was able to do the job in an acting role and provide cover for a while. And then when the job opportunity came up, I had that experience and could step into it. And then that allowed me to have a much broader impact on the service in the region. When you think about taking on some of these opportunities, it feels a bit scary, like you might be thrown in the deep end. But actually, services in the country, they want you to do well in your posting and learn quickly and thrive rather than sink in the deep end.
It's so interesting because one of the things that really struck me about Sheree was when we were talking about, this incredible career trajectory for her. She's achieved a lot in a really short period of time. She's won these amazing awards. And one thing that really stood out to me was her insistence about how much it isn't really about her and that it's about the team. And I imagine that sense of teamwork, that teamwork mentality is even more important when you're working in a regional setting where you may have fewer resources. You may not, but you may have fewer resources. I imagine that teamwork mentality is really critical. Did you get that sense from Sheree, and has that been your experience?
Yeah, 100%. And I think Sheree's commitment to that team is really admirable because you can't work without the team, and the team is just as good as the people who work in it. And Sheree's clearly got an amazing team. And, a wonderful team really lets services grow and it lets communities grow because then they can have trust in services. They can see these amazing individuals like Sheree who then make teams and services amazing because they put in all that hard work, and then the efforts of individuals become greater than the sum of their parts. The collective becomes something awesome. But it's really nice when the hard work of people like Sheree is acknowledged. I think that's really important, because it is people like her that keep teams running and growing.
And there's so many beautiful takeaways there for people who are listening to act as a real impetus to go regional and spend some time building that team and building that community and being part of these really incredibly unique communities. Is that how you feel in your space?
Yeah, for sure. It's just such a wonderful chance to really get out what you put in. You put a lot of time and hard work and care into your work, and into a community in that way, but you get so much back from the community, because you're living in it. It's your life, it's your people. So your hard work pays off for everyone, including yourself.
That's so true, because I imagine when you work in a big city and you treat a patient, chances of you ever bumping into them on the street are probably really slim. Whereas when you work in a regional setting in a smaller town, as Sheree said, she bumps into women and their children and babies that she's delivered. Someone even called their baby after her, which was such a beautiful story to hear. It sounds like it drives her kids nuts. She just gets mobbed as she's walking down the street, but that must be such a special part of working regionally. And I remember when you and I first connected, you told me, I get to see the impact of my work. I get to see it in the community, and that must feel really validating.
It's so good. And because it's not just the impact on the individual patient that you've helped, that's awesome to see, but it's also the impact of their doing well or having a healthy baby on the people around them. It's the ripple effect out into the community, but also people coming to seek your assistance who otherwise might not have done that because they've seen someone else have a positive experience. For me as a psychiatrist, that's really huge, but I bet it is for Sheree as well, people feeling safe in trusting their antenatal care to her and to the service.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you, Kelly.
Pleasure. Anytime.
Don't you just love her? Of course, a big thanks to you for joining us. In our third and final episode, we'll be talking about how to balance resilience and self-care. If you enjoyed this episode, be love and share it with a friend. And remember, the Pilbara Health Professionals Network has been established to support you. You can find more information and more resources over at phpn.com.au. I look forward to you joining me and my friends next time. Please note the views expressed in this series are the expert's own and can't substitute for personal medical advice.